Welcome to Balance and Beyond, the podcast for women who've outgrown the old model of success, the ones who look fine on the outside but know the way they've been living no longer fits. If you're standing in the space between who you were and who you're becoming, this is for you. I honor the space you've created today. Let's dive in. There is a conversation coming up again and again that I need to bring to you. Women in my world, smart, senior, successful, are increasingly telling me they don't want to climb anymore. Not because they've lost their ambition, but because they can see what the next rung is going to cost them. They can see the pressure, the pivot, the changes that are coming, the chaos, and they've clocked that, you know what, the job I'm in now just isn't giving me the fulfillment that I thought it would. These women are starting to look elsewhere, not necessarily for a new job, because usually they've got fees to pay, but they're really searching for something more aligned with who they are and what they're passionate about. I've been asked directly, what have I learned about making the switch from corporate to entrepreneur? Many people who become entrepreneurs have never been in corporate. But for me, it's been 6 years since I left corporate, and I was in corporate for 20 years. I'm grateful that in that time, I've enjoyed thousands of clients and I'm closing in on 6 million in revenue in 6 years from zero. No product, no audience, no clients. What's crazy is that puts me in the top 2%. Would you believe only 2% of women-owned businesses have ever crossed a million? But the good news is I am just getting started. Now, I have not had an entrepreneurial upbringing. So I have learned all of this myself the hard way. My dad worked for the same company for 50 years and rose up the ranks from being an electrician, repairing photocopy machines in the old days of those giant things that were the size of a room, to being in second in charge of the company. That's how things worked then. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. Entrepreneurship was never modeled, never discussed. It was all about stability and staying in one place and proving yourself and working your way up. So I've broken that family mold here. What I want to share today are the 5 most poignant lessons I've learned since making the jump from corporate to running my own business. These are things that I wish someone would have told me before I started, the things that would have saved me a lot of time, money, and a lot of heartache. Now, it was really hard for me to pick just 5, so I will stick to my 5. I want to make sure that I've given you ones that you can't just get from a Google search. So these are ones that, as a woman, juggling all the things that I wish I knew. First up, gold star proof yourself. In corporate, you get loads of external validation, whether it's a paycheck, bonuses, KPIs, benchmarks, occasional feedback. The further up the chain you go, the less feedback you actually get, but it's there. You can celebrate things with your team members. You've got that consistent system in some way. When you start your own business, you've got nobody telling you what to do. Everything relies on you, which means you have to find new ways to give yourself gold stars. When I first started, my gold stars came in the form of money and clients. But when it takes you a while to get money and clients, and then it's lumpy, it's so difficult for you to actually find the fuel you need to go on. When I first built my first ever coaching program, I went and asked 15 different people for feedback on my outline, because that's what I did in corporate. If I'm honest, I was scared. I didn't know if I was right. There's a really fine line between being collaborative and getting market intel and asking some powerful questions versus this incessant search for external validation where truly I was just looking for everyone to confirm what I already knew because I didn't trust myself enough at that point in time. Interestingly, when I rebuilt Balance and Beyond version 2.0 3 years later, I didn't ask a soul because I didn't need to. I was the expert in this space. So it took me a couple of years to really own that. You have to learn to find your own source of internal validation. If you are still chasing gold stars, then you are going to be on one hell of a ride that is full of cortisol, full of adrenaline stress, and not a lot of sleep. One of the joys and the challenges of running your own business is the really important lesson that you are your own handbrake and your own accelerator. In corporate, I was in financial services. So there was a whole amount of regulatory stuff, risk management, legal approvals. I was in very collaborative cultures. I was seizing the world. And so, even though I was somebody who was always pushing the envelope for change, no surprise, I still had a lot of people telling me what I could do. I couldn't necessarily do something that wasn't aligned with the corporate objectives. Going on your own, you have to learn that I'm my own accelerator. And if I'm putting my own handbrakes in place, then I'm just robbing myself of what I've come here for. But if you don't want to bunny hop between the two, the one thing will give you a smooth ride is being okay with failure and with rejection. Whether it's rejection of your pricing, your proposal, clients leaving you, having to give people refunds, having disputes. When you take everything personally, then my God, get ready for the wildest bunny hop ride of your life. And this lurching, if you have any perfectionistic tendencies, which full confession, I did, becoming an entrepreneur pours rocket fuel on them because you will so easily find yourself tweaking, reiterating, looking for certainty in all the places that you can't find it. I spent a lot of time getting some of my branding documents ready and not actually going out and selling because that was a little bit scary. So hence I would want to go out and do things and then the handbrake would come on. You can move faster when it's just you or when you're in charge. You don't need 15 people's approval. But if you find yourself underquoting or you find yourself over delivering, then this can really dampen your journey. So, the freedom that many people are looking for in getting out of corporate is often that same freedom that exposes many of your dysfunctional patterns. And it will also expose where you're outsourcing some of your momentum. After you've learnt to find new ways to give yourself gold stars, or better yet, require less of them in the first place, you're getting a smooth ride instead of bunny hopping. You need to know what you actually want, or becoming a squirrel will eat you alive. In corporate, you have company objectives. You have the one-page PowerPoint with 3 or 4 pillars, and you then have to do your strategy, and it ladders up to that. And while I was in rooms that set the strategy, we still had shareholders, we still had things. I didn't have free reign. But as an entrepreneur, squirreling or shiny new toy syndrome, oh my God, it's so real because there's no one telling you what to do. If you aren't focused and if you don't know what you want, then it's difficult to stay on tasks. And the worst part is the distractions can make sense because you logic your way. Usually they can be great distractions, they're exciting, they're opportunities, but they're probably often not going to be the ones that move the needle. So you have to be clear on what you want. You have to really learn to tap into your intuition because those squirrels are so seductive. Learning to listen to myself, really getting clear on what matters to me, on what's going to move the dial, has been a constant journey for me. But it is a skill and a muscle that I wish I knew to develop further when I was in corporate. I would use my intuition in corporate, but there was this inevitability about things when it's yours, almost like your own baby. When you have a team, when you're responsible for somebody else's meal ticket, you want to be damn sure you can trust what's coming through. So the more you can build that intuition muscle, the more you can learn to listen to yourself, the more you can be aware of some of those blind spots and where you tend to squirrel over others, then that's going to make a really big difference to how far and how fast you can go. When you become an entrepreneur, most of the time, you are the product and you can't outsource the discomfort of that. Even if you sell widgets, More and more of selling the widgets is the story about the people who create the widgets and where did the inspiration come from and what was the journey of that widget being produced. And if you're selling any kind of consulting or intellectual property or you want to be on a board, you are the product. You need to have a clear story. You need to know what a personal brand is. You can't hide behind proposals and faceless pieces. And any masks that you have up are going to very, very quickly be exposed. What always makes for the most compelling sales, the most irresistible offers, is when you're fusing your expertise in it. That means you have to show who you are. You can't just hide behind a LinkedIn profile. You have to actually bring yourself into the equation. And unfortunately, these days, that usually means getting comfortable with social media, hearing your own voice, speaking on camera, all the things that makes you uncomfortable, but you can't outsource that to anyone else. No one else can show up on camera as you. And yes, I know AI can do this stuff now, but there's an energetic component to running your own business. And I suggest you do not outsource a lot of those things unless you're doing a fun video and it's you masquerading as a unicorn or something like that, then go for it. If you aren't comfortable being yourself, if you in corporate are still not posting on LinkedIn and not being seen anywhere, if you're still hiding, then if you want to go into business yourself, where you have to show your vulnerabilities, where you have to be authentic, it's going to be really hard for you. And let's put a general note out there to discomfort, because many clients who come to me have spent their entire life avoiding the discomfort of making someone disappointed, the discomfort of entering into conflict, the discomfort of letting somebody down or saying no or feeling anger and not being able to express it. You are going to have to tolerate more discomfort running your own business because you're the product. And so if you're not selling, if you have not found a way to detach yourself and being okay with failure, then it feels like rejection and you will shrink and you will hide because it can feel impossible, especially in the early days, to not take that personally. Having faith in yourself, knowing your worth irrespective of the numbers on your P&L, having a vision, knowing where you're going is so important. Otherwise, you'll shrink, you will hide, you'll put yourself back into a box. And I believe that if you have a calling or you're being pulled or you really want to do something else, whether that's a side hustle, you want to renovate a villa in Sicily, whatever it is, then you want to be true to that. So don't shrink from something just because it's uncomfortable. But if you're thinking of making the leap, make sure you're putting yourself in containers, places that make you uncomfortable before you do it. It's like saying, I want to run a marathon. Maybe make sure you've got some sneakers and maybe start running some 5 and 10Ks before you actually begin. I've had so many clients say, Joe, no, I'll wait. When I've left my job, I don't want to do it while I'm at my job because, that's a bit murky. And so, no, I'm going to wait and I'm not going to do any of that work. I'm just going to focus. That makes logical sense. But then you are a standing start. And now it's on you. You probably have to make some money. And now you're going to go into fear and pushing and franticness, and all these old patterns are going to come up. When in reality, you could have been building some runway. And by runway, I don't necessarily mean you're out there scoping clients. I mean, you're starting to post places. You're starting to get more comfortable in front of a camera, even if nobody else ever sees it. But you are building these skills. And I, for a long time, have always been quite comfortable writing because that's been a skill set of mine. But talking, I hated my own voice for a really, really long time and would squirm anytime I heard it. 150 plus podcast episodes in, you just suck it up and get used to it. I've got used to seeing myself on camera. And more recently, I've been pushing myself on Instagram. I hired a videographer to get B-roll shots of me because I was sick of hiding. So that was incredibly uncomfortable for me. And so I'm continuously pushing myself outside my comfort zone, knowing that that is where my edge lies and that's where my next level of success lies. Which brings me to the ultimate piece of advice that didn't show up anywhere what I was reading about starting your own business. Scrap the business plans and the P&Ls and all that crap. Your business will never outgrow your identity. If you want to start a business, there is no greater crash course in personal development than going it alone. Understanding your blind spots, understanding where you sabotage yourself, where you hold yourself back, the upper limits that you are hitting. Because you leave corporate and there you knew the rules. You had an identity that was usually defined by your title, your hierarchy internally, the industry you were in, your external piece. And now, if that all goes, what do you have? Sometimes that can translate, sure, if you're going on boards and things, but often then it has this reckoning. Well, if I'm not that, what am I? If that job gave me the guardrails, it gave me the direction, now I'm responsible for finding my direction, finding my motivation, stop the squirreling. I've got to find my own source of validation. I've got to motivate myself. I've got to manage my own boundaries. There is so much that you're going to have to do as part of that process. And I have found again and again and again, when most people hit a cap in their business, it's because they've hit a cap with their identity. Sure, sometimes it can be structural or systems oriented, or it can be a product piece, but more often than not, that's what it is. And I know personally, anytime I've hit a ceiling in my business, my first point of call is I've hit a limit. I've hit a limit of how much I can hold. Any limiting beliefs that you have around worthiness, money, being seen, taking a risk, being bold, leaving the box, they are all going to come to the surface real fast, particularly anything around worthiness and money. If you have to earn it, if you have to prove it, all of those old wounds are just going to blossom. It's really easy to just shove them down and pretend they don't exist and put your head down and work 100-hour weeks, but they will always continue to bump you. So knowing that this journey to start a business is as much a personal development journey of your own as it is the journey into sales and marketing and fulfillment and delivery and IT and all those things. Yes, there's all those technical skills, but you can master those. You've done all of that. If you've been in corporate, you have a significant advantage over others who haven't been in corporate. As I started my business, I was working with people who were nurses or teachers or police officers, and they didn't have a lot of the structures that corporate has given us. So you have so much that you can bring with you, which is amazing. But don't forget that the work has to continue on you. One of the big pieces when we talk about doing the internal work or the personal development work is really understanding what are your strengths and what are your values. As an example, one of my number one values is freedom. It's really, really important to me. It's why I hate rules. It's why I hate being in corporate. It's what I do everything for. So the thought of not having a handbrake is really exciting for me. I'm like, let's go, baby. Like, let's go fast. And I don't mind failure because it means I'm learning. But my husband, on the other hand, would not really make a great entrepreneur because his primary goal is safety. He hates risk. He hates failing. And it's really challenging for him. If he was to start his own business, he'd probably be quite cautious and he'd probably be a lot slower than me. Now, it's not necessarily right or wrong. While there do tend to be more entrepreneurs who over-index into freedom, and that's why they go down that path, that doesn't mean that if you are someone who values safety and values risk, that you're not going to be successful. If you don't know that that's the case, then I guarantee you will fail. However, if you get to know yourself well and you know your blind spots, well, then you're probably going to be more cautious, but there's a chance that you're going to build something that's more sustainable. You're not going to take risks. And who knows, you might even find that you can learn to take risks in different ways when you find ways to cultivate more of that safety within. So that's what I mean when you can build a business that works with you, not against you. It's in alignment with your values, with who you are and how you want to show up in the world and what matters to you. Because if you don't find that alignment, then you will constantly be at war with yourself. I found that alignment of who I am, what I want, where I'm going, who I'm serving. You start to get those right, and that can take several iterations. I know it did for me. Well, then that becomes a beautiful way for you to step into your power, to step up and to really take the hits that are going to come your way because you know you're doing it for the right reasons. I'm here for the long term. I'm not just here to make a quick buck. This is what I'm made for. And so many women who are wanting to step into businesses like this feel exactly the same way. They want to find that sense of fulfillment. It's not always just about making money. For some, it's pocket money for new clothes or a holiday, but it's finding somewhere where they can grow, where they've got that sense of fulfillment, where they've got that excitement and they know that it's worth it. They're not selling their soul for someone else. They're doing something that matters to them. It's been 7 years. It's really hard to believe. 6.5, 7, 6, 7, anyone who's got a kid. And this entrepreneurial life suits me so well. I don't think I could ever go back. But I'll be the first to say it's not for everyone. If you are one of the many considering making the leap and you have more questions, then in the show notes, you will find a send a text to Joe function. You can send me a text, you can ask me questions, and if there are enough questions on this topic, then I'll do a follow-up episode and we can go deeper. Here's to taking risks, having fun, and doing whatever the heck you want. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today. If this episode resonated, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if you want to be part of the ripple effect, leaving a review helps it reach the women it's meant for. I'll see you next time.